Hi, today's a very special day. Our chicks are 7 days old. We have two races. Let me show you. Can you see these two little ones? Where are we at? Here and here. They don't have any tail feathers and they don't have a tailbone. These are Araucanas and they're absolutely beautiful. We had the 7 of them hatch, and this little one, Blondie, we call her Blondie. There you are. Calm down, calm down. There you are. She is so pretty. But we were very concerned because she had a problem with her legs splaying. Well, this little chap is so sweet. She had eventually, her legs got so bad, within a couple of days of coming out of the egg, she had her legs splayed out to the side and she actually couldn't even stand up. And we put a little splint on her, well, a little brace that pulled her legs together from the sides at the hip level, and we pulled them in, and I think she wore it for about 3 days, didn't she?
2 or 3.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. And now you watch, she can walk around just like the others. Isn't she gorgeous? But she's always been smaller than the others. And she holds her own in the crowd. But she is a very special little person because she's been through a lot to start with, really. These two, we think, are the girls. And these, we know these are Legbars and these are boys because they have a little yellow dot on the top. You see they've got a yellow dot on the top of their heads? Now, what is so amazing is they've already got their wing feathers. And we're talking about a week of development. It's extraordinary. The boys like to be together. And these two make a perfect pair, but they're not similar at all. If you look at the markings, this one here is stronger and darker. And this one is probably my all-time favorite. She is so pretty. She's the same as these, but look at the colours on her. And these are her beautiful wings, all developing. Look at that. Isn't that magical? She's such a little angel. And they spend all day chatting so sweetly to each other. They're the most lovely thing you can possibly have, I think. And these are my very first chicks and my very first chickens. I didn't know I was going to like them so much, but I really, really do. She's absolutely gorgeous with her eye makeup. And I just think this is such a wonderful colour. And they're called Legbars, and I think the bars are because they have these stripes, and they're getting the stripes. And she's going to be magnificent. We've got 2 races here, Araucanas, which are the granddads, if you like, the granddads of the blue laying chickens. And a Legbar is a modern development thereof. The interesting thing to me is they're cousins and how similar they are. And they're very docile and they're just happy to be near you, aren't they? They make perfect little pets. People don't think of them as pets, but they are beautiful, beautiful pets. They're soft. She's gained a lot of weight since we had this one. But we put them in this big plastic carton. Originally, we had some paper on the bottom because they couldn't seem to tell the difference between food and these little bits of wood chippings. But we changed over so they can bed down and they like to settle. And you can see them sitting here, all of them, how happy they are. All right, down you go, Poppet. And you can see this is just fine stuff. You can buy it anywhere. And then Paul's put these in. It gives them something to hop onto and practice perching. We've got several sizes in here, and it helps them reach the food. This is a starter food, a proprietary starter food, and we've mixed it with some of the maize. It's grown locally, this maize. It's a sort of sweet corn variety thing. And we have ground it up so it acts as a sort of grit, because they're only a week old, they're babies. And the other thing we've added is some mealworms. Chop those to give them more protein. But just look at them, they're so sweet. And they're like people. They keep having little mini disputes, and then they have cuddle-ups 5 minutes later. And they like each other really, but they have a lot to say about it. And they chat a lot. And the last couple of days they've started preening, pulling these feathers around and looking after them. And that is the very first time. When you first get your chicks out of the egg, they spend about a day just recovering. And it can take about 12 hours to get out of that egg. Most of ours were out in about 6 hours from making a hole to actually getting out. And then you leave them in the incubator to try to keep their warmth while they dry out and become fluffy. And then we've got a heat lamp here, which actually is it's a reptilian version, so it's cold. They say it's cold to touch. It's not, it's hot to touch, but it won't burn in the same way as the infrared old-fashioned ones do. And we also have a plate that takes the place of a mother hen, and we put that over the top of them so they can cuddle up at night and cuddle underneath it. We've only started taking that one out during the day because they were a lot smaller. I think they're about 4 times the size, aren't they? They really have got so much bigger. And if you look from the top, you can see the boys are now developing different shapes. This one's getting quite round. And this one here is whiter than the others. And this one, I just think this one is a better shape altogether. It's between the two. Just look at that. Aren't they cute going in and getting their food? You can see here very clearly the little boy's tails. I'll see if I can... They're not quite so keen on being handled, but you can see he's developing a nice little tail. And the tail only started 2 days ago. And we noticed that this little one here is a good example. She doesn't grow a tail. She's a tail-free version of a bird, a chicken. And if you look, she's growing back feathers instead. It seems that they can only support growing certain amount of new feathers because it takes a lot of energy, protein, and they simply can't do all of the bits at once.
Yummy.
That one's got a lovely tail developing. Really beautiful tail. And it turned out to be such lovely chicks. we had a bit of a problem with the incubator, which we didn't know about, which would have caused the problem the little blonde one had with her legs, and a couple of them have got little bent toes. During the last 3 days inside the egg, they need to orientate themselves ready for coming out. And the problem with that was that you actually stop the turning of the eggs, because they do need to be turned regularly. Well, our incubator was semi-automatic, so it turned every 2 hours. And then once you reach day 17, I think it is, isn't it? Or is it day 18? I'm not very good at maths. 3 days before the end, you stop the turning. So you put the little program in and it stops it turning. You just push a button. But we had a power cut. It reset itself to day 1 when the power came back on. And the eggs were turned on the day before hatching for 24 hours before we realized what was happening. And that would have traumatized them somewhat. So that's why we got 2 with some bent toes. And the little chick here that now doesn't have a problem at all, but she could not even lift herself up. She was in a bad way. So it is nice if you can look after them to get them back well again. We did try straightening the toes, but I naively thought that their toes would straighten themselves out quite a bit on their own by using them, but I was wrong. In fact, their toes got worse. So we put little shoes on them. You make a little shoe. There's quite a bit on the internet about it. So we did straighten them, and they have got a little bit better, but we didn't do it on day 1 or day 2. We didn't do it till day 4, and I think it was just too late to have a big impact. So Paul put in these little sticks to give them something to clamber over so as they start that particular motion, because we don't want them to not be able to perch. Some people tell you they don't need to perch, but by perching they get off the floor, and if you can get them off the floor, they don't get the mites and the ticks and all the problems that they would normally get if they sat on the floor. They're less prone. Aren't they just lovely? They just have such lovely personalities, and they arrived with these little personalities. And you have to admire this little tiny one here, our little blondie, because she's such a fighter. She was actually sprawled flat, unable to move. The others were picking on her. In the wild, of course, she would have died. If her mum had been looking after her, she'd have walked off and left her. No, they have to prioritise the fittest and healthiest in the wild. But luckily she was born into captivity and we were able to look after her. But she's such a personality. She's feisty, she's a survivor. She's half the size of the others. But you can see they don't pick on her. I don't think you would pick on her, would you? No, you wouldn't. She's very cute and she's very pretty. All of these have turned out to be such pretty animals. But you have to remember, they're not sweet little things. They are, in fact, modern dinosaurs, really. And they are feisty, and they are survivors, and they are absolutely beautiful. So we're really looking forward over the next 2 weeks and it should only take another 2 weeks for the plumage to come in, and we'll see what we've got. But look, they've fallen asleep. Look, little babies, they've just fallen asleep. And we watched them when they were a couple of days old. They would be eating and then just crash and literally fall over, close their little eyes, tumble over and go to sleep, like you see tiny tots do. They are absolutely lovely. Look at them as they settle down. They start drifting off to sleep. See, they like to be together. But there's a certain amount of who's going to go where going on. There, isn't that sweet?